You know, I'm going to say something to you that I think will absolutely shock some of you. You know, I've been a pastor now for 25 years. I hope you have a little fun with my statement to hear in a minute. But, I've had many people come to me and say things like, I don't believe in organized religion, or I don't like going to church. Do I really have to go to church? I mean, it's so boring, is this difficult? Why do I have to do this? I think we'll hear this particularly with a lot of young people today, but I think it's certainly hardly something just that the young talk about. I think there are many people, middle-aged, older people, that really don't like going to church. And they don't necessarily like sitting around and going through some of the things that happen in typical churches. Here's my confession to you. I don't either. I'm a pastor. I don't always like going to church. I don't always like being involved in things in churches. I think they're very tough and difficult and hard. And if you've been a pastor like I have for many years, sometimes you get into churches and go, I just can't believe, why am I here? Why am I putting up with all this grief? Well, of course, in my case, I get paid to do it. But there are many people, elders, deacons, people sitting in the pews, they just say, I don't want to put up with all this. Why don't I just go off and find God in the woods? That's what many people say today. Well, the reason and the answer for that is the reason that we go to church is because the church is God's way to crucify us. Deep down inside, every one of us needs to be crucified. The Bible is very clear about the idea that Paul talks in Galatians chapter 2, I've been crucified with Christ, and yet not I live, but Christ liveth in me. We have this idea today that the church is supposed to be some big fun party. Everybody's just supposed to have fun all the time. The reality is to be a Christian is hard because you're dealing with other imperfect people in something called the body of Christ, and it is not always nice. Sometimes the church is messy. Sometimes we get in there with brothers and sisters and we don't agree and we have to fight and work through things, and it's hard on us. But what it ends up doing, it ends up killing off parts of us that have gotten in the way. See, the Lord wants those parts, what we call the flesh in the Bible, to be crucified with Christ and to be put aside so the new life can come. And oftentimes, the church will be a place where that happens. I can tell you, after 25 years as a pastor, it's happened to me. I've watched the Lord crucify some of my flesh. And you know what? It's been good that He's done it, because I'm more like Jesus today. So those of you wrestling with the church, it's not always a love boat. It's not always the party place. It's not always fun. But it is the place where God has called us to put off the old life, to take on the new. And through the cross and through laying down some of our desires and needs, to be drawn into an amazing new life. May God help us to have that new perspective of the church and to recognize that that is the hidden purpose often in the church that many of us have been missing.